Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. I don't think you can overemphasize just how good the CBC political corruption scandal is for the Conservative Party and Pierre Poilievre right now. There is a reason why Conservative MP Rachel Thomas immediately called for a parliamentary investigation into the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation's hiring and editorial practices. And I think there is a very strong possibility that the NDP and the Bloc Québécois will be joining the Conservatives on this and actually giving an investigation real teeth. Because remember, Mark Carney and the Liberals only have a minority government, so they can't stop the opposition from getting together and holding the CBC accountable for effectively acting as a Liberal Party front group. But before I get into what this investigation is going to be all about, I do want to remind you guys, if you like my coverage of Canadian politics, make sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are not yet a subscriber, and leave a comment on what you think about this story. But here is the tweet from Rachel Thomas from yesterday, and she says, breaking news, Conservatives are calling for immediate committee hearings into the CBC for forcing the resignation of Travis Dunraj. He is a ex-CBC host now who was running the show Canada Tonight with Travis Dunraj, and naturally he ended up having to resign because they started restricting his ability to even operate as host, who actually wanted real balance. But going on down a little bit more on Rachel Thomas's statement, she says the CBC is again accused of workplace harassment and bias reporting. All this while the CBC is funded by taxpayers and executives pay themselves massive bonuses. We need full transparency and accountability before Parliament now. And I want to mention, on top of CBC executives getting massive bonuses, despite the fact that they're actually laying off staff members, they were already being paid in the ballpark of $400 to $500,000 a year. Yeah, that's really public service right there. That's always the funny thing about the CBC. People act like it's a selfless organization because it's making Canadian media for Canadian people using Canadian taxpayer money. Like there's something naturally virtuous about it because of that, when in fact it just becomes a Liberal Party slush fund. Liberal hacks will put out liberal hack news and they will pay themselves handsomely to do it. But let's read a little bit of the letter here. It says, the resignation, or Dear Chair, the resignation of Travis Dunraj from CBC has reignited concerns about the organization's workplace culture, placing renewed scrutiny on its more than $1 billion in public funding and its ongoing pattern of executive bonuses. In a public statement, Mr. Dunraj states that he was forced to resign from the national broadcaster, citing deeply troubling concerns of, quote, retaliation, exclusion, and psychological harm, unquote, at the CBC. Mr. Dunraj also asserts that, quote, what happens behind the scenes at CBC too often contradicts what's shown to the public, unquote. Given these damning allegations and that the CBC reports to this committee, it is critical that we hear testimony from Mr. Dunraj, CBC executives, and the Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture, Stephen Guilbeault, at the earliest opportunity possible. Pursuant to Standing Order 106.4, we, the undersigned, are calling for the committee to be recalled in order to arrange hearings on this pressing matter. And then sincerely, you have Rachel Thomas and Kevin Waugh. So, yes, this is a great story for the Conservative Party to constantly hammer on. This is actually giving Poilievre and the Conservatives a good opportunity to buy back a lot of, I guess, the unjust damage they did to themselves by calling for the CBC to be defunded. And by the way, I absolutely support defunding the CBC, but that issue ended up hurting them in the 2025 election, not because the CBC is popular, but because America's unpopular. And as you know, during the 2025 federal election, everything became about elbows up and opposing Donald Trump. So, because the CBC is Canadian and it's not run by Donald Trump, it became popular. A lot of things, like asbestos, is probably popular right now because we have a lot of asbestos in Canada. That's how ridiculous everything was getting, as you guys all witnessed. So, this allows normal Canadians who really don't follow politics that closely and don't know just how politically corrupt the CBC has been for decades to finally understand just how blatant the bias is behind the scenes. Because as we've seen from Travis Dunraj, who has been very brave in blowing the whistle on this, he could have just kept getting a large salary to host a hacky show where he interviews liberals, and he didn't want to do that. He's been coming out and saying, him and his lawyer, that they were actively preventing him from having conservative voices on his show. They were trying to skew the editorial viewpoint of his show in a liberal direction. And when he started opposing them, they kicked him off his own show, wouldn't let him host it. They removed his name from the show to humiliate him, even though he was still the primary host. They did all these things in order to make him feel excluded, like he had done something wrong. He was some sort of heretic inside the organization, and he's not putting up with it. So the conservatives need to make this like one of the main hits on the liberals. They're only in government right now in part because of the abuse of taxpayer money at the public broadcaster that the liberals have known about for years. Again, like I said in a video yesterday, the CBC gets away with the idea that they're neutral because when they attack conservatives, it's not them attacking them, it's this expert attacking them. Oh, it's this activist attacking them. We're just quoting what people are saying out there. We're not actually attacking them when they obviously are. Again, it's insane that at a time when Mark Carney is supposedly concerned about overspending in the government, he still wants to give the CBC another $150 million a year added onto their already massive $1.2 billion a year budget. So they will be around 1.35 billion a year. Why? I guess we need more crappy sitcoms or the US wins in some vague way. Nobody watches the CBC. When I say nobody watches it, I don't mean literally nobody watches it. Their market capture is like 3.42% or something like that. That's still a lot of people being propagandized. But it's not like it's something that's a quintessential Canadian thing that all Canadians tune into every night. It's a very niche channel in the grand scheme of things, especially when you factor in their budget. They, in fact, get more money per capita than Fox News has in their budget in the United States. Fox News, which is easily the biggest American news broadcaster, is per capita smaller than the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation because I think their budget's like 7 billion a year and ours is 1.35 billion a year and we're a tenth their size. This is how stupid it all is. But I just want to show you something else that just came out today, and full credit to Sheila Gunn Reid from Rebel News. I'll just show the report right here. They uncovered that the CBC has been outsourcing recruitment to outside organizations, potentially, as Sheila Gunn Reid implies in the article and in the headline, that they're outsourcing hiring because the organization they outsource it to has like a better way of being able to like filter out conservatives without the CBC being implicated in basically skewing its hiring towards liberals. And so I need to show you the actual website of the organization at where they had a CBC posting on it. It's absolutely stupid. So here we see on this website called mercs.com, MERX.com, there is a posting for CBC Radio Canada. And we have details for different positions and whatnot. And what I want to do is, can I find it here? Maybe I have to go back to the article. I might have to go back to the article, but in it, they listed a bunch of hiring requirements or a bunch of factors that they're going to play into who they're going to hire. Things that should be very illegal if the government was directly engaging in it, if the CBC was hiring these people themselves. But because they have outsourced the hiring to Mercs.com, the Mercs can be the hyper woke people who end up trying to keep conservatives out because that wasn't a CBC decision. That's just a Mercs decision. So check this out. Again, coming from Sheila Gunn Reid, it shows the tendered outlines for main categories for recruitment: corporate services, finance, HR, procurement, information technology and digital service, media professionals, editorial production reporting, and last but not least, diversity. They are looking for diversity as a standalone category of people they're trying to hire. That's really weird. I'm not sure about you guys, but it sounds like it's just basically an excuse to hire liberals. And it's not because minorities are liberal, But it's because when you have a category like that that means nothing, you can just hire people you like because, well, the person's black or the person's South Asian or it's a woman, ergo, we hired the right person. So you can't say, well, that person doesn't have all the experience they need. That person doesn't have an actual background in journalism or a background in finance. They're diverse. And Sheila Gunn Reid down here says diversity gets its own standalone category because nothing says merit based hiring like checking boxes before checking resumes. Oddly enough, diversity of thought didn't make the cut. And that is something that Travis Dunraj, a man who is obviously South Asian, has been highlighting. That he was tired, and he even says it like exactly. He was tired of being a token. That he is a brown guy to sit there on screen and just read the CBC scripts. He wanted to actually have a balanced show where there's interesting conservative voices and interesting liberal voices talking to him, giving their perspectives, not having sort of pre-filtered, safe conservative voices who say absolutely nothing offensive to the liberal sensibility coming on, and then having actual liberals because that's what the CBC does. It'll have a very assertive representative of liberal values, and it will have a very passive, sort of sad representative of what a conservative is, like Andrew Coyne. Andrew Coyne isn't conservative. All he is good at conserving is whatever the liberals create. If the liberals create a program, he will die defending it because it is now an institution, and conservatives must conserve it. This is the game that they play. But mark my words, this has the ability to trip up Mark Carney's liberal government. This could be their first major scandal. And if the liberals do not pair up with the conservatives and the other parties in investigating the CBC, they're going to look like massive political hacks. Right now, the NDP are completely broke. They need stuff like this. They need to show that the CBC is being run as a liberal front group. They need more balanced coverage because right now the NDP has been completely iced out because the media knows that their best hope of getting more money and staying embedded in Canadian taxpayer in like the or having their taxpayer money continue. The only way that's going to happen is if the liberals stay in power. And the NDP are now a threat to the liberals, whereas before they would team up and hold the government together. Now the liberals need all of the votes in order to keep the conservatives out. So the media has been de-emphasizing the NDP massively. And now they have a leadership race going on. So again, they need as many opportunities to jab the liberals as possible, and this gives them a good one. Obviously, the conservatives' motivation is very clear here. They need to like absolutely reputationally destroy the CBC, prove to moderate Canadians that it is not a trustworthy source of news. And the Bloc Québécois, they like the CBC in general because, Radio Canada is, French media, but maybe they'll take the opportunity to jab at the English side of it and emphasize why the French side needs more funding. You never know. Politics is a weird game, and many people will say, will do things that you normally wouldn't hear them do just because gives them the opportunity to attack the other side. But anyways, so that should be it for me in this video today, guys. We are going to have more updates down the road on the CBC issue. The investigation is a very smart thing for the conservatives to be doing, and I hope that they just act like a dog with a bone on this because even by just talking about it a lot, it's going to take away the spotlight from Mark Carney trying to highlight what he considers to be achievements of his government. You can both take down the CBC and distract from liberal achievements by doing this. Anyways, so that's it for me today, guys. See you later.